Chapter 6. Grace. 42 degrees Fahrenheit. When my father got home, I was still lost in the silent world of the wolves, imagining again and again the feeling of my wolf's coarse hairs against my palms. Even though I'd reluctantly washed my hands to finish up dinner, his musky scent lingered on my clothing, keeping the encounter fresh in my mind. It had taken 6 years for him to let me touch him, hold him. And now he'd guarded me, just like he'd always guarded me. I desperately wanted to tell somebody, but I knew Dad wouldn't share my excitement, especially with the newscasters still droning in the background about the attack. I kept my mouth shut. In the front hall, Dad stomped in. Even though he hadn't seen me in the kitchen, he called, "Dinner smells good, Grace." He came into the kitchen and patted me on the head. His eyes looked tired behind his glasses, but he smiled. "Where's your mother? Painting?" He chucked his coat over a chair. "Does she ever stop?" I narrowed my eyes at his coat. "I know you aren't going to leave that there." He retrieved it with an affable smile and called up the stairs. "Rags, time for dinner." His use of Mom's nickname confirmed his good mood. Mom appeared in the yellow kitchen in 2 seconds flat. She was out of breath from running down the stairs. She never walked anywhere. And there was a streak of green paint on her cheekbone. Dad kissed her, avoiding the paint. "Have you been a good girl, my pet?" She batted her eyelashes. She had a look on her face like she'd already knew what he was going to say. The best. "And you, Gracie?" "Better than Mom." Dad cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, my raise takes effect this Friday, so..." Mom clapped her hands and whirled in a circle, watching herself in the hall mirror as she spun. "I'm renting that place downtown." Dad grinned and nodded. "And Gracie girl, you're trading in your piece of crap car as soon as I can find time to get you down to the dealership. I'm tired of taking yours into the shop." My mom laughed, giddy, and clapped her hands again. She danced into the kitchen, chanting some sort of nonsense song. If she rented the studio in town, I'd probably never see either of my parents again. Well, except for dinner. They usually showed up for food. But that seemed unimportant in the comparison to the promise of a reliable transportation. Really? My own car? I mean, one that runs? "A slightly less crappy one," Dad promised. "Nothing nice." I hugged him. A car like that meant freedom. That night I lay in my room, eyes squeezed firmly shut, trying to sleep. The world outside my window seemed silenced, as though it had snowed. It was too early for snow, but every sound seemed muffled. Too quiet. I held my breath and focused on the night, listening for movement in the still darkness. I slowly became aware that faint clicks had broken out from the silence outside, prickling at my ears. It sounded for all the world like toenails on the deck outside my window. Was a wolf on the deck? Maybe it was a raccoon. Then came more soft scrabbling and a growl. Definitely not a raccoon. The hairs rose on the back of my neck. Pulling my quilt around me like a cape, I climbed out of the bed and padded across the bare floorboards, lit by the moon. I hesitated, wondering if I dreamed the sound, but the tack, tack, tack came from the window again. I lifted the blinds and looked out onto the deck. Perpendicular to my room, I could see that the yard was empty. The stark black trunks of the trees just jutted like a fence between me and the deeper forest beyond. Suddenly, a face appeared directly in front of mine, and I jumped with surprise. The white wolf was on the other side of the glass, paws on the outside sill. She was close enough that I could see moisture caught on the banded hairs of her fur. Her jewel blue eyes glared into mine, challenging me to look away. A low growl rumbled through the glass, and I felt as if I could read meaning into it, as clearly as if it was written on the pane. You're not his to protect. I stared back at her. Then, without thinking, I lifted my teeth into a snarl. The growl that escaped from me surprised both me and her, and she jumped down from the window. She cast a dark look over her shoulder at me and peered on the corner of the deck before looping into the woods. Biting my lip to erase the strange shape of the snarl, I picked up my sweater from the floor and crawled back into bed. Shoving my pillow aside, I balled up the sweater to use instead. I fell asleep to the scent of my wolf. Pine needles, cold rain, earthy perfume, coarse bristles on my face. It was almost like he was there. Chapter 7. Sam, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. I could still smell her on my fur. It clung to me, a memory of another world. I was drunk with it. With the scent of her, I'd gotten too close. My instincts warned against it, especially when I remembered what happened to the boy. The smell of summer on her skin, the half-recalled cadence of her voice, the sensation of her fingers on my fur. Every bit of me sang with the memory of her closeness. Too close. I couldn't stay away.